All right, this video is about the common suffices that you'll see throughout this semester. This video may be a little bit longer than the one for common roots, and that's for good reason. Typically, the roots of the words will be different for each different body system, although we had those common roots that will be common to all of the systems. Suffices will be continually used regardless of the system. So there's more common suffices than there are common roots. Again, we're going to see these suffices in every single chapter. So if you can get these down now, really nail them now, your semester is going to become a lot easier. So the suffixes can have a few different functions. Some act as adjectives, so they often mean, for example, pertaining to whatever the root is. Pertaining to the heart, pertaining to the skin, pertaining to just means pertaining to. Sometimes they act as nouns. Sometimes they transform the root meaning of the root to a smaller version of the root. So, for example, an arteriole, the suffix is "-iole", and that means a small artery. The root is arter or artero. So an arteriole is a small artery. We'll see that in a minute. And you, of course, need them to change from singular to plural. So all of these, ac, al, ar, airy, eel, ick, tick, and us, all mean pertaining to. I don't know why we need so many different suffixes to mean pertaining to, but cardiac, pertaining to the heart, skeletal, pertaining to or referring to the skeleton, muscular, referring to muscles, pulmonary, referring to the lung, esophageal, referring to the esophagus, medic, referring to a medical professional, neurotic, referring to the nerves, subcutaneous. This has a prefix as well as a root, but it means pertaining to, under the skin. So all of these mean pertaining to or related to or referring to. The suffix "ia" we've seen in previous videos means a condition. So pneumonia is a condition of the lungs. That's all it says. Don't know what's causing it, but it's just a condition of the lungs. Ism also means a condition. So autism means a condition of the self. In the early studies and the diagnosis of autism, it was first identified in individuals who seemed to be within themselves, stuck inside themselves. So it was a condition of the self. Ium means either a tissue or a structure. So if we break down this word, ium means the tissue, peri means around, and of course card means the heart. So this is actually a sac that surrounds the heart. And we've seen this before. E means a condition or a procedure. So hypertrophy, in this case, it means condition, not a procedure. So it's a condition of lots of growth. These all mean to make the root smaller. So ickle means small, ventricle means a small chamber. Ole, as in arteriole, what I just mentioned, means a small artery. Ule, as in a pustule, means a small pus-filled cyst. And eula also means small, as in uvula, which literally translates as a small grape. It's that little dangly thing in the back of your throat. Sometimes roots, prefixes, and suffixes can be combined into complex suffixes. So, for example, tomi is a complex suffix. Tomo is a root that means to cut or slice. And as we just saw, Y can mean a condition or a procedure. In this case, it means a procedure. So lobotomy means a procedure to cut, slice a lobe. That could be a lobe of the brain or a lobe of the lung, doesn't tell you. It just says a procedure to cut a lobe. A common but even more complex suffix is ectomy. So we already see that tomi can be even more complex and can be combined with ek. Ek means out or outer, and tome, as we saw, means to slice or cut, and Y means a procedure. So this is a procedure to cut out. Some more complex suffixes. Pediatrics means medical science, as in pediatrics, the medical science of children. Iatry means medical science, psychiatry, the medical science of the brain or mind. Iatrist is a specialist in the medicine of, so a psychiatrist is a specialist in the study of the mind. Ist simply means specialist, so a dentist is a specialist in teeth. Logist means a specialist in the study of, so a psychologist is a specialist in the study of the mind. Logi, of course, just means the study of, so the study of the mind. Sometimes the suffix can indicate a symptom or a disease or a condition, a specific type of condition. So algia refers to pain. So myalgia is a pain in the muscles. Dynia, sometimes pronounced dynia, also means pain. So gastrodynia, gastro means stomach, dynia means pain, so it's a stomach ache. Seal means a hernia. So a hernia is a bulging of a tissue into an area where it doesn't belong. And in the case of hydrocele, that refers to the bulge being filled with a fluid, not necessarily pure water, but some fluid. Emia means a blood condition. Ea means condition, em refers to the blood. So leukemia literally means a blood condition of whiteness. It refers specifically to white blood cells. Iasis means there's a presence of something. So a lithiasis is the presence of a stone. Lith means stone. Itis means an inflammation. So arthritis is an inflammation of the joints. Arthra means joints. Lysis means to break down, to break, or to loosen. So hemolysis, heme, as we saw before above, heme means blood. So hemo means blood, and lysis means to break. And literally this means breaking blood, but what it really refers to is the breakdown of red blood cells. Malacia means an abnormal softening. So osteomalacia means an abnormal softening of bone. Megaly, as I mentioned before, means enlargement. So this is an enlarged liver. Hepatomegaly. Oid means that it resembles something. A keloid means that it resembles a scar. Oma means tumor. Doesn't have to be cancerous or malignant, just means a mass. So melanoma means a tumor of the melanocytes, the pigment-making cells in the skin. Osis is a condition. Thrombosis is a condition of blood clotting. Pathy, we saw before, that means disease. So myopathy, notice that the emphasis goes on the here. Myopathy means a disease condition of the muscles. Penia means deficiency. So leukopenia means a white deficiency, but that's what it means literally, but in practice it means a deficiency of white blood cells. Ptosis means drooping. Ptosis. Just barely catch that P. Ptosis. So nephroptosis, notice the emphasis went on that antepenult combining vowel. Nephroptosis means a drooping kidney. Rage, or ridge, means excessive flow. So a hemorrhage means an excessive flow of blood. Ragia also means an excessive flow. So menorrhagia means excessive menstrual blood flow. Rhea just simply means to flow. So diarrhea means to flow through. Dia literally means, is translated as through. And anybody who's had diarrhea knows that that is a flowing through. Rhexis means to rupture. So a metrorrhexis is a rupturing of the uterus. Metro in this case means uterus, not city. Spasm, involuntary contraction. So a myospasm would be an involuntary contraction of a muscle, kind of like the hiccups. Synthesis literally means to puncture. However, I will say this, it almost is always is used to mean to puncture, but then to withdraw some fluid. So, for example, an amniocentesis is performed on a pregnant woman where they puncture the membrane around the embryo or around the fetus and withdraw some of the amniotic fluid. Gram means a written record. That's what it literally means, but it's more commonly used to just be a recording of. So it can mean, in a cardiogram, a recording of the heart. That's the machine actually showing you the bouncing up and down lines of the electrical activity of the heart. If it can be used to refer to a picture, like an X-ray. It can be used to refer to an ultrasound. So it's not always actually written with a hand. But it's some physical representation of what's going on in the body. The graph is the instrument used to make the written record, like a cardiograph or an electrocardiograph, records an electrocardiogram. Graphy is the actual process of doing the recording. The meter is an instrument used to measure something. I think that's pretty clear. A cephalometer measures the head. Why do we want to measure the head? Well, usually you want to measure the head, say, of the fetus to make sure that it's not too big to fit through the mother's pelvis during childbirth. Metry is the process of measuring. A scope is something used to look. So arthroscope is a device used to look at joints inside the joint. Process is then you use the suffix scopy. So arthroscopy. Watch where you put the emphasis. Arthroscopy. Cephalometry. Desis means to bind or to fix. So an arthrodesis is binding of a joint to hold it in place while it heals. An ectomy, as we talked about before, is a removal. Literally means to cut out. So a vasectomy would literally mean the removal of the vas deferens, which is a vessel that carries sperm. Unfortunately, in practice, as we'll see when we get to the reproductive chapter, you're not actually removing anything. All they do is they go in and they cut the vas deferens. They don't actually remove it. So that's kind of a bad example. Pexy means a surgical fixation, which means they're actually sewing something in place. Retinopexy means that they're sewing the retina back into place. If the retina becomes dislodged, they have to go into the eye and actually suture it back in place while it heals and remains where it should be. Plasty is a reconstruction. So a rhinoplasty is reconstruction of the nose, as in rhinoceros. It's a nose job or nose repair. Raphy means to suture. So a herniorrhaphy means that you're suturing up a hernia. Basically, you've pushed the bulging tissue back to where it belongs, and then you're sewing up the hole so it can't bulge back through. A stomy, okay, this looks like it involves tomy, but it does not. That's important. Ectomy, that does involve tomy, a cutting. A stomy is literally means mouth. It comes from the Greek for mouth, but it's the creation of an opening. So a colostomy is the creation of an opening into the colon. And here's just plain old tomy, as we saw before. That means to cut. It's a procedure for cutting an incision. Dermatomy means to make an incision in the skin. The last kind of suffix we're going to talk about is to convert a singular to a plural. So on the left, you see the singular. If words that end in A, for example, to make that a plural, you would add an E to the end, converting vertebra, a single bone, into the vertebrae, several of the vertebrae. Or a larva becomes a larvae. If the singular ends in ax, the plural becomes aces. So thorax becomes thoraces. If it ends in ex or ix, the plural is isses, and we've seen that in suffices and prefaces. So a cortex becomes cortices. An appendix becomes appendices. Each individual only has one appendix, so you won't usually have to make that a plural. If it ends in is, it becomes an es, as in a singular neurosis, or you have many neuroses. Or there's a single diagnosis, or there's several possible diagnoses. And finally, if it ends in ma, the plural is to add a ta to the end of that. So a singular sarcoma becomes several sarcomata, or a singular carcinoma becomes several carcomata. And those are the most common suffixes. Again, you're going to want to nail these now because you're going to see them in every single chapter.